really depends on the life cycle of your website as well. It's dependent on your niche, but usually you want to be about DR 40 and above before you try this. Because again, you're going to need to update your page because for a lot of these data specific queries, Google loves freshness.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Jolly SEO's TLDR. Today, I am really grateful Alex Horsman is here. First of all, love the previous brand name Shitty SEO advice, but also founder at Lazy Link Building. Alex, it's great to reconnect. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, man, it's awesome. It's been a while since we've talked. I know you've worked on a couple of our projects and we've been really happy with what you produced.
Yeah, well, and back at you. We were grateful to be part of those, and I took your Lazy Link Building course that you offered for a bit there, for a few cohorts, but I just wanted first to clear the elephant in the room here. Is your SEO advice shitty, Alex?
I don't think so. I came up with that name for two main reasons. One is because I think it's funny and sarcastic, and I'm just kind of naturally that way. But the main reason is like the advice I give isn't necessarily ever going to make a good YouTube thumbnail. Like I'm not trying to teach people how to generate 1,000 AI articles within one day or something to that effect. Like what I tell people is like slow is fast, and we talk about doing what's not scalable. In addition, like talking about how to move away from SEO because being solely reliant as that as a trap as one single traffic channel can absolutely crush you. Like I've been crushed because of that. So sometimes we mix in advice that's not necessarily SEO and therefore it's shitty.
It's awesome advice for those just tuning in. It's a recurring theme in all my recent interviews with people is SEOs are becoming marketers again, or at
Yeah,
least waking up to the fact that we have always been in the marketing department. We just thought that we lived outside of that. So
yeah.
that's great. We could do a whole follow-up episode on that. Actually, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Today we had thought to talk about your lazy link building method, uh,
Yeah.
and and I have a feeling we're gonna get into slow as fast, which I love. So, uh, my question for you, just to put a term on it, I guess to insert jargon right from the get, is this like the linkable asset that people have heard about?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people call it linkable assets. The difference or I guess the difference we try and make is, when you think of linkable assets, you usually think of sexy infographics and infogram and data visualization and all this stuff. And we're not trying to do that. We actually want to look more like academics versus marketers. So if you go to like PubMed and any of those research papers, that's the style that we want because, we're trying to get links from journalists and we want them to land on our site and see us as a trustworthy source because they're professionals at the end of the day and they need to make sure that their sources are accurate and trustworthy. So that's how we kind of differentiate it between the, sexy linkable asset style.
Okay, so way more about like data integrity than a sleek, like
Yeah,
polished image.
1,000%.
That's a relief, honestly, to because like it's refreshing in our space in SEO. I think too
Yeah,
many people are willing to just put a sheen over. Maybe they didn't do their homework and just
yeah.
make a nice image and whip
They
it
made it
out.
look
So
good.
yeah, exactly. Actually, we were talking about this before recording, in a different context, but are there any niches this doesn't work with? Because, for example, we do the hero type stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's occasionally a niche that we just can't serve as much as we might like the business owner or even the subject matter ourselves. It just doesn't do well. Is there anything you found where you're like, sorry, like you should invest your time elsewhere, not on this right now?
Yeah, there's it works better in some niches than others. I've yet to come across one where it doesn't work at all. Maybe something like knitting. Like I would be surprised if I could make it work in knitting. Um, but like a lot of SaaS businesses, they can absolutely crush with this strategy, but it just depends on like how well you can do. So I talked with a client who was in the equestrian niche, and that's and in the UK. And there's just not that many data studies that you can create around the equestrian niche. But at the same time, he told me he was like, I only need one or two links every month from high quality and I'm ahead of my competition. So
Right.
it won't work as well. Like you won't get as many links, but you might not need many links. So, there's a trade-off there.
That's really interesting insight, because it's by comparison to his
Yeah.
competitors, because we are competing.
Yep.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, I'm kind of going rapid fire at you here, but you talk about lazy link building, and I'm just curious, like, does this mean literally no outreach? Because we're heavy on outreach. We try not to be
Yep.
spray and pray, right? But we are heavy on outreach. But are you all the way on the other end of the spectrum, like no outreach whatsoever?
No. And it really depends on the life cycle of your website as well. So if you're a brand new website, if you can't, like, you won't be able to rank for the keywords that these data studies are going after. And so it's a pointless strategy to try and deploy at the very beginning of a website. Usually I tell people, again, it's dependent on your niche, but usually you want to be about DR 40 and above before you try this. Because again, you need to be able to rank for this. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting your time. Uh, that being said, as well, like it's just one tool in the toolbox. So, you still need links to your money pages and your landing pages, and you're not going to get that with this strategy. You're going to get links to your data studies, but the data studies don't make you money. They just build your overall authority. So we still do outreach for our targeted pages, and then as well, you're going to need homepage links, which are not. Sometimes you get a homepage link because the journalist quotes your homepage instead of the actual data study. That's very rare, but it does happen. So yeah, we still 100% do outreach. It's just trying to like build passive links on top of your active outreach as well.
Hey, I'm so glad you're enjoying the video so far. If you want our help to keep your traffic trending up, please click that first link in the description down there. That lets you message me directly and I'll get right back to you. Looking forward to helping you out, and please enjoy the rest of this video. Yeah, that's fascinating. We are outreach heavy, and we also have observed doing over 500 campaigns. There's a certain point. I like the term you used, the life cycle of your website or your digital asset. You do need to be a certain authority to get picked up in top tier publications, generally
Yeah.
speaking, always exceptions, but makes even more sense for what if you're talking about total inbound interest in your content. You're not going to be seen if you
Yeah.
don't have some authority. So that's awesome. Right. For the service providers, I'm thinking about what is the way to position this, because we do outreach and we price per link, right? We've
Yeah.
thought about a service like this for years, and we haven't figured out how to turn this into a product, because we
Yeah.
like the whole productized service model. And here's where we always stumble, and maybe everyone else doesn't have this problem, but for me, uh, do we can't charge per link because there's no we don't you don't know how many you're going to get, right? And not to say we're being greedy, it's more like limiting the client's liability, their perspective on, like, I don't want to pay for unlimited. Or do you charge by project or hour? Oh, for the service provider, how could they wrap this up into something they could offer to people?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the very first time I sold this as a package, I did it on a per link basis, and it was an absolute nightmare.
It was
And there's a number
for
of reasons
you
for this.
or for
Yeah. For me, because also one, you're doing a lot of upfront research, writing the content, creating the graphics, and that's a lot of cash out the door. And
yeah,
we look at we look at 6 month time horizon. And so that's a long time. Usually the links start compounding around month 3 or 4. And so
yeah,
that's 3 months or 4 months that you have no cash coming in the door. So what I've ended up doing is just doing a price per campaign, similar to what digital PR does, and then just doing a link guarantee. But
yeah.
what's important, so then you can back in if you're doing 4,000 per campaign, 10 link minimum, all links are DR40 plus domain traffic, 10,000 plus, 400 per link. And that's kind of how we back into that pricing. Um, and the one thing I'll say is just being very clear that you're looking like it's passive and you're looking at it on a 6 month time horizon because it's not going to come in month one. The page needs to rank the page and like so just being super crystal clear with that is going to take you a long way.
Yeah, and in case that sounds like too long for some people, outreach-based services, at least not in the pay, we're not in the paid space. When you're trying to earn links, they're not that much faster, right? Especially
Hmm.
digital PR. 6 months is a reasonable time frame to fulfill. Honestly, it sounds crazy, but for a high quality delivery, you may get a couple links much earlier, but to fulfill the
Yeah.
entire, it is what it is.
Yeah, you do get links earlier. And again, typically around that month 3 to 4 is when we start seeing the like compound effect take place. So as long as we're seeing like, hey, the page is starting to rank, hey, here's like one or two links that have trickled in, like that's positive signs for us. Also, it's kind of annoying from an agency standpoint, like Ahrefs has a lag. So
Yeah,
you also have to, we'd monitor them and send bi-weekly updates after it's been published. And again, it's like, hey, no links have come in, but if you actually go look in Google Search Console, you can see some links that have come in. So you kind of have to check multiple data providers as well. Um, but yeah, and in terms of like price per link, so like you can't, if I say, hey, I'm going to charge you 400 per link in perpetuity, like that's just not going to happen, right? Um, And what's nice is, okay, if you do a 10 link guarantee, but the page gets like, you know, 20 or 30 links over the 6 months, then, it's gonna be a high rebuy rate.
yeah, yeah. It's a really cool position to offer to a lead or a client, right? And like you said, a client, a returning client, they'll come back again and again.
Yeah.
What what about on the we just talked about the expectations for when we'd start to see links, when we'd probably get the majority.
Yeah.
Is it theoretically that you're getting links endlessly here, or is it more like, yeah, sure, in theory, but after 12 months, just for example, is when the majority of the links would have arrived? Is there some kind of timeline you have for the back end of
Yeah,
this?
you can keep getting links pretty much forever. What we do whenever we find a topic is we look at their link profile over 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, and 12 months because we want to
Okay.
make sure that, hey, for the entire past year, this page has been getting links. Now, the one caveat there is that you're going to need to update your page because for a lot of these data specific queries, Google loves freshness. So, like, my biggest advice there is after 3, 4 months, if you have a page that's getting links, freaking create a task and ClickUp or whatever project management software you're using and just go in and update the page. And you don't need to overhaul it, but make sure that it's updated so you can get pushed back up. So that's the biggest caveat. But if you stay on top of it, then yeah, you can continually get links.
Yeah, totally makes sense. I was thinking you need to refresh.
Yeah.
That actually brings me to a question I wanted to ask you. So you've worked with brands, I'm sure large and small. The bigger you get, it seems, although there's always exceptions on the lower end too, but the bigger you get, there's friction between competing teams or leadership
Hmm.
when you talk about on-site assets.
Yeah.
So have you encountered that? And what are some ways that you can help assuage those concerns? Once, you've got buy-in from the SEO or whoever your
Yeah.
point of contact is, but now you need to help them with
Yeah.
the next person.
Yeah, that I mean that happens a lot. You always have like your champion who's trying to get the boss to buy. So the number one thing there is tying it to the core product or service so that like it feels like the content itself, whether it's getting links or not, is tied to your service. So for instance, we worked with a data scraping website, and a lot of people use their tool for social media. And so we create a bunch of social media data studies. And they were able to get buy-in because it was tied to the core product. So I think that's typically how we try and like back people into it. Um, and like the inverse of that was there was another data scraping website. We didn't work with them, but I saw them create a whole bunch of articles around like how many McDonald's are in the US, how many McDonald's are in Missouri, how many 7-Elevens. It was, and they did like a programmatic approach, and they were getting hundreds of links per month to these, but it actually ended up hurting them because they were so irrelevant to their brand. And they ended up having to 410 every single page that they built, including those hundreds of like amazing links, but they just weren't relevant to the brand at all. So that doesn't really answer your question about friction with leadership, but it's just an example of like make sure it's tied to the core product, and that's how you can typically get leadership to buy in a bit.
No, I actually I really liked that example. Just unfortunately, there's in marketing there's a term stand against, right? But you can make sure to explain that what you're doing is good for the brand by
Yeah,
way of showing a example where someone was irresponsible. Yeah, that's great. And honestly, at the end of the day, like I said, recent conversations, it seems like more and more SEOs are talking about that we're marketers. Especially
yeah,
in our space, that is mostly what the C-suite is concerned about is what is this going to do to our brand long term? Of course, they want the short-term win. Of course,
yeah,
they have KPIs for their team, but it has to be done responsibly. So that I
yeah.
think that's a great way to address that. Um,
Yeah, and there's certain you'll find as well sometimes that there's data studies that you can create which also would fit into your ICP or your customer demographic. Like there was one, it was an email marketing service provider, and the data study was about the average ROI on email marketing, and I was like, that's perfect. Like it was soaking up links and people landing on that page who aren't journalists are like they're investigating the ROI on email marketing. Like that's a great place to plug you in.
yeah, yeah,
So
we
sometimes
want to
you can't
know.
always find those. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's it's very challenging. It's been interesting because obviously you've been in SEO a while. We've run the gamut here from writing content for search engines to writing content for consumers. Now it seems
Yeah.
like people are writing content for ChatGPT again. So,
Yeah.
but in this case, yeah, writing content that both people want to repurpose for their audience, but also can serve your audience directly. That's interesting. An interesting
Yeah.
challenge. Oh, you already touched on this a little bit, but I just wanted to explore again. You said you do need to be a certain authority or above for people to be able to discover your site, right? To
Yep.
get fully inbound. Even if you are DR40 plus, is there a time and place for doing outreach to kind of like add fuel to the fire, so to speak? Or would you really advise like, no, we've done the work, we've invested in the content, just focus elsewhere and let it take its time and do its thing.
Yeah, 100%. So it depends on who you are. So from the agent, like my agency standpoint, if I write an article or create a data study for a website and I see it starting to rank and in month one it's already gotten a few links, I'm not going to add any fuel to the fire. This is awesome. Like I don't need to spend more money on the client. It's going great. That said, if you're an in-house SEO or, again, we're doing these bi-weekly tracking, if I don't see it ranking how I want to, then 100% like sending 2 to 3 links to it will 100% speed up the process. And like maybe that 6 month is now like 3 or 4 months because you did some manual outreach to it. So there's 100% a place to do that.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. What about I was just thinking on the spot here. These data pages you're creating, are they linking internally back to specific pages on the site? Always a money page, service page? Where's the flow of traffic here? What's the intent?
Yeah, so in the beginning, they're not. In the beginning, like there's no ads, there's no email pop-ups, there's no sales, there's nothing. It's like the goal of
Intentionally,
this page.
explicitly.
Yeah. Yeah. For the next 6 months, I want this page to attract as many links as possible. But then after that's over, then you go in, edit the content, add in links to your service pages. And to be fair, it's not going to, I don't even think it necessarily drops your link like chances so much as long as you're not being overly aggressive. But I just like for the first 6 months to just nothing, nada whatsoever, and then go in and add those strategic internal links.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's very common. I think I just want to, for the listener, like that's extremely sound advice. Like you said, it's not necessarily, I feel the same with our own website with an email newsletter pop up. You just made me think about
Yeah.
like, should I tone that thing down again? I recently had it so it only shows to a visitor if it's their first time in 2 weeks. And then I was like, no, I
Yeah.
want to drive signups, so I have it showing up every single time. Now I'm like, maybe I need to tone it back down. So these are things to think about because
Yeah.
the human, whether it's the journalist or the consumer, they are a human, and there is a user experience to consider.
Yeah.
They're factors.
Yeah.
Alex, there's a lot that I don't. I didn't quite know how to frame my questions for this interview, so I always like to ask: is there something I didn't ask that you're thinking like we've at least got to share this with the audience?
Yeah, I would think, I kind of mentioned this earlier, like this strategy just being one tool in the toolbox. I'm on, if you see my LinkedIn post or on social media, I'm the no outreach, kill your outreach templates guy. But it's not entirely true because you still need links to those targeted pages. But what I love about this strategy is yes, it's passive. Yes, I've gotten better links using this strategy than any other strategy, but it allows you to get a very like organic and natural link profile that's 100% white hat. So then you can be a little bit more risque building, with your anchor text to your money pages. And so that's my favorite thing about it is like this is all 100% white hat. So it allows you to be more strategic with if you're building links.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think people see our marketing personas, and you do have to take some stand against positions sometimes. So sometimes I see your posts, I'm like, but Alex, you used to love our outreach services. Why don't you love this anymore? But that makes total sense. We all have to do a blend of activities when at the end of the day. You mentioned your social, as we're wrapping up here, where should people look for you? Where can they get in touch? Because it's a great service you're offering.
Yeah, LinkedIn, Alex Horsman, no Ian Horsman. And that's going to be the number one place to reach me, or lazylinkbuilding.com if you want to learn this entire strategy and what the heck it is we're talking about.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Alex.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Greg.